There is a dangerous kind of enemy you should fear more than the person who openly hates you. The one who smiles. The one who asks, "Are you okay?" The one who congratulates you when you succeed. The one who tells you, "I'm always here for you." Because an open enemy gives you information. You know where they stand. You know what to expect. But a hidden enemy? They stand beside you while quietly studying your weaknesses. They listen to your plans without celebrating them. They notice your insecurities without exposing them. And sometimes, they don't want to destroy you immediately. They simply want to watch you destroy yourself. This is where Machiavelli's philosophy becomes uncomfortable. Power does not always announce itself with aggression. Sometimes it hides behind kindness. Sometimes the most dangerous manipulation arrives wrapped in concern. And here's the disturbing part. You may already know someone like this. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a colleague. Maybe it's someone in your family. Or perhaps it's the person who constantly tells you that they want the best for you. But every time you move forward, something feels slightly wrong. Their words sound supportive, but their energy feels different. Their smile appears, but their eyes don't. Their advice sounds intelligent, but somehow you always end up smaller after listening to it. So how do you recognize the difference between genuine concern and disguised hostility? Not by becoming paranoid, not by assuming everyone is your enemy, but by learning to observe patterns. Because one strange interaction means almost nothing. Repeated behavior reveals intention. And today, we're going to examine 8 subtle signs that someone may secretly resent you while pretending to care. The first sign is one of the easiest to miss. They become uncomfortable when you succeed. Think about it. When something good happens to you, what does this person do? Do they become genuinely excited? Do they ask questions? Do they celebrate your progress? Or does their behavior suddenly change? Maybe they say congratulations, but immediately add something that reduces the achievement. You got the job? Nice. But honestly, the competition wasn't that strong. You're looking better lately. Must be because you're finally eating properly. You actually made money from that? I didn't think anyone would buy it. Notice the structure. The compliment comes first, then the small attack. That's what makes it difficult to recognize. They aren't openly insulting you. They're contaminating your victory. Psychologically, this can function as a form of status correction. Your success changes the social balance. And someone who feels threatened by that change may unconsciously, or deliberately, try to bring you back down. Machiavelli understood something about human behavior that remains relevant today. People often tolerate your existence more easily when they don't feel inferior to you. Your failure doesn't threaten them. Your potential does. Your success doesn't merely change your life. It can change how they see themselves in comparison to you. And that's where resentment begins. Watch what happens when you receive attention. Watch what happens when someone compliments you. Watch what happens when you accomplish something they secretly wanted. Their reaction will often tell you more than their words. The second sign is more subtle. They constantly disguise insults as advice. This is one of the most sophisticated forms of social aggression because the attacker can always deny the attack. You're too sensitive. I was just trying to help. I'm telling you this because I care. Those 3 sentences can become a shield. Imagine you tell someone you're starting a new business. Instead of saying, "That's exciting," they respond, "Are you sure you're capable of handling it?" You tell them you're improving your appearance. They say, "Don't become obsessed with yourself." You tell them you're working toward a major goal. They say, "Just don't get disappointed when it doesn't work." Every sentence can technically be interpreted as concern. But notice the emotional effect. You leave the conversation doubting yourself. That's the key. Genuine advice gives you clarity. Manipulative advice often gives you insecurity. There is a difference between someone warning you about a genuine risk and someone repeatedly making you question your ability. The first protects you. The second weakens you. And sometimes, the person doesn't even need to lie. They only need to emphasize your weaknesses while ignoring your strengths. Because if someone can influence how you perceive yourself, they don't need to control your decisions directly. You will control yourself for them. That is a far more powerful form of influence. The third sign is that they remember your weaknesses better than your strengths. This is where observation becomes important. Think about the things you've told this person privately. Maybe you once told them that you're afraid of failure. Maybe you admitted that you struggle with confidence. Maybe you told them about a previous mistake. Maybe you revealed something you're deeply insecure about. A genuine friend may remember these things because they care. But a resentful person may remember them because they are useful. And eventually, those vulnerabilities start appearing in conversations. Not directly, subtly. You've always been bad at making decisions. You usually give up halfway. You're not really good with people. You've tried this before and failed. One sentence may seem harmless, but repeated over months or years, it can become psychological conditioning. You begin hearing their voice inside your own head. You start questioning yourself before you even take action. And this is where you must be careful. The most effective psychological influence doesn't always sound like an order. Sometimes it sounds like your own thoughts. That's why patterns matter. If someone consistently reminds you of who you were whenever you're trying to become someone new, pay attention. Because there are people who don't love you for who you're becoming. They only feel comfortable with the version of you they can understand, predict, or feel superior to. And when you evolve, they feel threatened. The fourth sign is especially revealing. They are supportive in private but undermine you in public. This person tells you, "I'm proud of you." Then, in front of other people, "Yeah, he's been trying to do that for years." Or, "She thinks she's going to become successful with this." They make it sound like a joke. Everyone laughs. And if you react, you're suddenly the insecure one. This is social manipulation through plausible deniability. They can always claim they were joking. But observe the pattern. Do they repeatedly embarrass you in front of people? Do they reveal things you told them privately? Do they subtly question your competence when others are watching? Do they make you look arrogant whenever you express confidence? If yes, you're not looking at an isolated joke. You're looking at a pattern of status reduction. Because social reputation matters. A person doesn't need to attack your character directly. They can simply plant small doubts in the minds of others. A joke here, a comment there, a concern disguised as information. And eventually, people begin seeing you through the version of you that this person has constructed. That's why Machiavellian thinking begins with observation. Don't obsess over what people say. Study what their behavior accomplishes. Ask yourself, after this person interacts with me, what changes? Do you feel clearer or more confused? Do you feel stronger or smaller? Do you feel respected or subtly humiliated? Do they help you build your position? Or do they constantly weaken it? Because intention can be difficult to prove, but patterns are much easier to observe. And once you learn to recognize those patterns, people become much harder to manipulate you through. The fifth sign is perhaps the most dangerous. They compete with you while pretending they don't. You mention an achievement. They mention a bigger one. You buy something. They have something better. You make progress. They suddenly reveal how far ahead they are. You share an idea. They immediately explain why their idea is superior. This person may never openly admit that they're competing with you. They might even say, "I don't compete with anyone." But their behavior tells another story. Healthy competition can motivate you. Hidden competition exhausts you. Because the goal isn't simply to improve. The goal is to make sure you never feel superior. And this creates a strange dynamic. Whenever you rise, they need to rise higher. Whenever you receive attention, they redirect it. Whenever you're praised, they find something to criticize. And eventually, you may find yourself trapped in a competition you never agreed to participate in. That's the moment to step back. Because one of the oldest principles of psychological power is this. You don't have to enter every battle you're invited into. Sometimes the strongest move is refusing to play the game. And that's where we'll continue. Because the final three signs become even more revealing. One of them involves how they behave when you're vulnerable. Another reveals what they do when you stop giving them access to your life. And the last one can expose whether their kindness was ever really kindness at all. Watch carefully. Because once you understand these patterns, you may start seeing certain relationships very differently. The sixth sign appears when you are vulnerable. They seem interested in your problems, but somehow your weakness makes them feel powerful. This is a subtle distinction. A genuine person listens because they want to understand you. A resentful person may listen because information gives them leverage. You tell them about a difficult situation. They ask questions. They remember details. They appear concerned. At first, you think, this person really cares about me. But later, those same details somehow become weapons. During an argument, they bring up something you told them in confidence. You're always insecure about this. You've always struggled with that. That's probably why nobody takes you seriously. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about solving a problem. It's about exposing your weakest point. And this is where you should understand a crucial psychological principle. Information creates power when one person knows more than the other. The more someone knows about your fears, ambitions, insecurities, mistakes, and emotional triggers, the more opportunities they have to influence you. That doesn't mean you should become emotionally closed. It means you should become selective. Not everyone deserves unrestricted access to your inner world. Machiavelli's philosophy was never simply about being cruel. It was about understanding human nature without romanticizing it. And one of the most important lessons is that trust should be earned through consistent behavior. Not through words, not through emotional performances, not through years of knowing someone. Behavior. If someone repeatedly proves that your vulnerability is safe with them, trust grows. If they repeatedly use your vulnerability against you, trust should shrink. The seventh sign appears when you stop giving them attention. This is where hidden resentment often reveals itself. As long as you are available, they seem friendly. You answer every message. You listen to every problem. You help whenever they ask. You give them attention. You give them validation. You give them access to your time. Everything seems peaceful. Then one day, you become busy. You stop explaining yourself. You stop responding immediately. You start focusing on your own goals. And suddenly, their personality changes. They become cold. They become sarcastic. They accuse you of changing. You've become arrogant. You think you're better than everyone now. You don't care about people anymore. Notice something. You didn't necessarily hurt them. You simply stopped feeding the relationship in the same way. And that can expose the real structure of certain relationships. Some people don't want your friendship. They want your availability. They don't necessarily value you. They value what you provide. Your attention, your emotional support, your connections, your validation, your usefulness. And when those resources disappear, so does their affection. This is why boundaries are so revealing. Say no, delay a response, decline a request, become less available, not as a manipulation tactic, not to punish anyone, simply because you have your own life. Then watch what happens. A healthy person may understand. A controlling person may become offended. And sometimes, the reaction tells you more than years of pleasant conversations. Because people often reveal themselves when they can no longer access you in the way they previously could. The eighth sign is the most important. Their kindness disappears when there is nothing to gain. This is the final test. Not a game, not a trick, just observation. Imagine you stop providing benefits. You can't help them. You can't promote them. You can't introduce them to someone. You can't lend them money. You can't solve their problems. You can't give them attention. You simply exist. How do they treat you then? Because genuine respect doesn't require constant usefulness. If someone only treats you well when you're valuable to them, their kindness may have been transactional. And transactional relationships aren't necessarily evil. Every relationship contains some degree of mutual benefit. The problem begins when one person pretends the relationship is emotional while secretly treating it as an exchange. They aren't asking, how can we both grow? They're asking, what can I get from this person? And when the answer becomes, nothing, their behavior changes. This is where you need to stop listening to promises and start observing consistency. Anyone can act caring when circumstances are convenient. The real test comes when caring costs them something. When supporting you gives them nothing. When your success doesn't benefit them. When your failure doesn't entertain them. When you don't need anything from them. Do they still respect you? Do they still speak well of you? Do they still protect your confidence? Do they still treat your private information as private? That's where character becomes visible. And now we need to talk about something even more uncomfortable. Sometimes the person secretly resenting you isn't actually your enemy. Sometimes they are simply insecure. Sometimes they compare themselves to you. Sometimes your progress reminds them of what they haven't achieved. Sometimes they don't even consciously realize what they're doing. This distinction matters. Because if you interpret every negative behavior as hatred, you'll become paranoid. And paranoia is not power. Awareness is power. The Machiavellian mindset isn't, everyone is against me. It's, I observe before I trust. That's a completely different philosophy. You don't need to accuse people. You don't need dramatic confrontations. You don't need to announce that you've figured them out. In fact, sometimes saying nothing is the strongest response. Let people reveal themselves. Give them enough freedom to behave naturally. Don't constantly test them. Don't manipulate them. Don't create artificial situations. Just observe, because people eventually become predictable. The jealous person will repeatedly compare. The insecure person will repeatedly diminish. The opportunist will repeatedly appear when they need something. The manipulator will repeatedly create confusion. The genuine person will usually demonstrate something different. Consistency. They don't need to perform friendship every day. Their behavior simply makes you feel respected. And here's the paradox. The more you understand hidden hostility, the less you need to confront it. You don't need revenge. You don't need to expose everyone. You don't even need to prove that someone hates you. Because your goal isn't to win an argument. Your goal is to protect your peace, your reputation, your ambitions, and your ability to think clearly. If someone repeatedly makes you feel smaller, you don't necessarily need to destroy them. You can simply reduce their access. Less information, less emotional dependence, less availability, less explanation, more boundaries, more observation, more distance, and perhaps the most Machiavellian lesson of all is this: never reveal that you have discovered someone's hidden intentions unless revealing them serves a clear purpose. Because once someone knows you've seen through them, they may stop behaving naturally. The mask becomes tighter, the words become more calculated, the behavior becomes harder to read. Silence, therefore, can be more informative than confrontation. Let them believe you haven't noticed. Continue watching, and eventually, their own behavior will tell you everything you need to know. But there is one final idea you should remember. Not everyone who criticizes you hates you. Not everyone who disagrees with you is jealous. Not everyone who gives you uncomfortable advice is manipulating you. Sometimes criticism is necessary. Sometimes your friends need to tell you the truth. Sometimes someone challenges you because they genuinely want you to improve. The difference is the pattern behind the behavior. Does their criticism come with respect? Does their advice make you stronger? Can they celebrate your victories? Can they disagree without humiliating you? Can they respect your boundaries? Can they keep your secrets? Can they support you when you have nothing to offer? If the answer is yes, don't destroy a valuable relationship because of one suspicious moment. But if the same destructive pattern keeps appearing again and again, don't ignore it simply because you've known the person for years. Time doesn't prove loyalty. Consistency does. And remember this: you don't discover people's character by listening to what they promise. You discover it by watching what they repeatedly do. So the next time someone smiles at you, don't immediately wonder whether they secretly hate you. Instead, ask a better question: does their behavior consistently align with their words? Because words can be rehearsed. Smiles can be performed. Concern can be imitated. But patterns are much harder to fake forever. And once you learn to recognize those patterns, you stop needing to fear hidden enemies. You simply become harder to deceive. That is the real lesson. Not becoming colder, not becoming cruel, not becoming paranoid, becoming observant. Because the most dangerous person in the room isn't always the one who understands manipulation. Sometimes it's the person who doesn't realize they're being manipulated at all. And perhaps that is the most uncomfortable truth of all. You don't need to know who secretly hates you. You need to know who deserves access to you. There is a difference. If you spend your entire life trying to identify every hidden enemy, you'll become obsessed with suspicion. You'll analyze every smile, every message, every silence, every change in tone, and eventually, you'll stop living. That's not power. That's psychological imprisonment. Real awareness is quieter. You observe. You notice patterns. You protect your boundaries. And then you continue moving forward. Because your greatest advantage isn't knowing who dislikes you. It's becoming so focused on your own direction that their opinion loses its ability to control you. Someone can secretly resent your success. Let them. Someone can secretly compare themselves to you. Let them. Someone can pretend to care while hoping you fail. Let them. Their feelings are not your responsibility. Your response is: you don't need to confront every person who shows you a darker side. Sometimes the most intelligent response is simply reducing access. No announcement, no revenge, no dramatic goodbye, just distance. The person who genuinely values you will respect your boundaries. The person who benefited from your lack of boundaries may reveal themselves by fighting them. And when that happens, don't argue. Observe, because people often expose their intentions when they realize they can no longer control the situation. Machiavelli's deepest lesson isn't to become ruthless. It's to stop being naive. There is a difference. Being kind is not weakness. Trusting people isn't stupidity. Giving someone another chance isn't foolish. The mistake is giving unlimited access to someone who repeatedly demonstrates that they don't respect it. You can remain compassionate without being easily manipulated. You can remain generous without becoming someone's resource. You can forgive someone without giving them the same position in your life. You can wish someone well without keeping them close. And perhaps most importantly, you can walk away without needing them to understand why. Because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. Sometimes closure is simply changing your behavior. You stop explaining. You stop chasing. You stop proving yourself. You stop trying to earn respect from someone committed to misunderstanding you. And you keep moving. Remember the 8 signs. The person who becomes uncomfortable with your success. The person who disguises insults as advice. The person who remembers your weaknesses more than your strengths. The person who supports you privately but undermines you publicly. The person who secretly competes with you. The person who turns your vulnerability into ammunition. The person whose attitude changes when you stop giving them attention. And the person whose kindness disappears when you stop being useful. One sign proves very little. A pattern proves much more. So don't become paranoid. Become observant. Don't assume everyone is your enemy. Learn who has earned your trust. Don't expose every person you suspect. Protect your peace quietly. And don't waste your life trying to defeat people who secretly want you to fail. The greatest response to hidden resentment is not revenge. It's progress. Because nothing frustrates a person who wants to see you fall more than watching you continue to rise without becoming obsessed with them. Let them talk. Let them compare. Let them misunderstand. Let them underestimate you. Your job is not to control their perception. Your job is to control yourself. Your attention, your discipline, your decisions, your boundaries, your direction. That is where your real power lives. And perhaps the final Machiavellian principle is this: never become so obsessed with discovering the mask that you forget to build the face behind it. Become stronger. Become wiser. Become harder to manipulate. But never lose your ability to trust the right people. Because the ultimate goal isn't to live in a world where nobody can hurt you. That's impossible. The goal is to become someone who can recognize deception without becoming consumed by it. Someone who can see manipulation without becoming a manipulator. Someone who can walk away without revenge. Someone who can remain calm while others reveal themselves. And when you reach that point, something changes. You no longer need to ask, who secretly hates me? You start asking, who consistently respects me? That question is far more powerful. Because your life should not be built around avoiding enemies. It should be built around choosing allies carefully. So watch the patterns, trust slowly, protect your vulnerabilities, keep your boundaries, and above all, never let someone else's hidden hatred become the center of your life. Let them remain in the shadows. You keep walking toward the light. Because the person who controls your attention controls a piece of your life. And you should be very careful about who you give that power to.